All right, hot start so far. It's 9 o'clock on this Tuesday night. I'm producer Chris. Welcome to our continuing coverage of President Trump's DC takeover. Now, if you haven't seen before, basically we're recapping what has happened over the past 24 hours and sharing some highlights from our Fox 5 coverage throughout the day. We are live on Fox Local right now. We're also streaming on our Fox 5 DC YouTube page. If you are watching and following along, leave a comment. Send me a message. Let me know what you think of our coverage. Let me know what you think of the situation happening right now in Washington, D.C. Anything you want to talk about, hit me up and we will discuss it. In the meantime, we are now in the third week of what is supposed to be a 30-day takeover, which means we are just about at the halfway point. And we're going to start off tonight with an overnight setback for the administration's crime crackdown. I want to take you to some video right now. If we've got it, stand by. I'm working on it. Stand by. All right, this is the video I told you about. The city's 12-day streak with no homicides, unfortunately, ended today. DC police say someone shot 31-year-old Frank Maggium overnight at an apartment on Anacostia Road in Southeast DC. Medics drove him to a hospital where he later died. So far, no word on a suspect or a motive. Anyone with information is urged to call DC police. So that's what happened overnight. Still, the administration celebrating its successes and its efforts to make DC safe again. This is the post from Attorney General Pam Bondi this morning. 87 more arrests for illegal firearms seized last night in Washington, D.C., where not a single carjacking has occurred over the past week. So now they're talking carjackings. We also arrested another gang member and a man caught burning our American flag in Lafayette Park. Make DC safe again. She also included an American flag emoji. That man who was arrested for burning that flag, Fox 5's Bob Barnard actually spoke to him. You can find that interview on our website as well. All right, let's see who else we got some numbers from. FBI Director Kash Patel, let's pull those up. 28 more FBI involved arrests last night in Washington, D.C., 4 illegal firearm recoveries, 7 illegal drug seizures. Washington, D.C. has gone almost 2 weeks without a murder. Lives are being saved every single day. Keep getting after it. Now, that was before we learned about that overnight homicide. Meanwhile, U.S. Attorney for D.C., Janine Pirro, today announced a major drug trafficking bust in Southeast D.C. Let me take you some video of that. That resulted in 7 arrests and 18 firearms seized. So that was another big development that we had today. Meanwhile, President Trump had a cabinet meeting today, a marathon cabinet meeting, lasted more than 3 hours. That was at the White House, and he spoke about the crime crackdown here in D.C. during it, like he has so many of his public events so far over the last few weeks. He also promised some extreme punishment for anyone convicted of murder here in the nation's capital. I want you to take a listen to what he said today.
Anybody murders something in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital punishment. If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative. And everybody that's heard it agrees with it. I don't know if we're ready for it in this country. But where you have it, we have no choice. So in D.C. and Washington, states are going to have to make their own decision. But if somebody kills somebody, like you could have been killed, very lucky you didn't get killed, it's the death penalty, okay?
So that was the president during the cabinet meeting earlier today. That was just part of what he had to say. That was specifically talking about the punishment for anyone convicted of murder here in the nation's capital. It's unclear exactly how that will work, though. D.C. has effectively abolished the death penalty for violations of the D.C. Code. The district is, though, still subject to congressional oversight And in federal cases like the recent murder of 2 Israeli embassy staffers outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, you may remember, the Department of Justice has the final say on whether to seek capital punishment in those cases. It may also be difficult to convince a DC jury or judge to impose the death penalty for violations of the DC Code. Fox 5's Katie Barlow asked DC U.S. Attorney Pirro, whose office would be responsible for prosecuting death penalty cases here in the nation's capital, how she plans to get over some of those hurdles. She said it will be a deliberative process, as it always is with senior Justice Department officials. Now, meanwhile, during that same cabinet meeting, the president talked to a reporter who was a victim of violence. You heard a little brief mention of that in that soundbite we heard earlier. He talked about his efforts to clean up the city and make it safer. He also addressed the accusations that the DC Police Department manipulated its crime stats. He also talked about the possibility of expanding his crime crackdown to other cities, Chicago in his crosshairs right now. I want you to take a listen to that.
I want to mention, about crime, because we have a young lady here, Iris, Epoch Times. You're Iris, aren't you, huh? And I heard you were very savagely mugged in the city, and you're not going to let that happen under this administration. And that was last year. And would you like to mention what happened?
Of course. So first of all, thank you, Mr. President.
Do you want to listen to this?
For having me here to share my story to the room and to the broader public. My name is Iris Talmadge, White House correspondent for NTA and sister media of the Epoch Times. So more than 2 years ago was a Saturday morning in broad daylight. I was on my way to work, and a young man with a black ski mask pointed a gun in my face and threatened me to hand over my phone, my wallet, my laptop, and everything else. And when I refused, he used the butt of his handgun to strike me across the face, the cheek, or what some people call pistol whip me, before running away. That has deeply traumatized myself and my family. Ever since, I've never dared to walk in the street of DC at night ever, and my family was extremely worried. So, Mr. President, thank you so much for what you're doing right now.
Thank you, Iris, for being honest.
Such incidents involve not just me, but also my family. If he had shot me, I could have died right there in the middle of nowhere without my families or my friends knowing at the age of back then, I think 23.
Right.
Just starting my career here in DC without even starting a family. But now I'm very blessed to have this opportunity.
So you had a gun pointed at your head, and you probably figured that he's going to pull the trigger, because these are animals that don't know what the hell, they couldn't care less. The pulling the trigger to him is a very minor event, and I'm sure he's done it before. So how did you, and you did refuse to give it, which
Correct.
would probably, maybe somebody would say that was not the right decision, right?
Right.
But you refused, but I understand that. So, and then he hit you real hard.
Yes.
It's really amazing that you weren't shot, though, isn't it?
I'm very blessed, and that's why having this opportunity to stand here to share my story today. One, I'm very grateful for God for allowing me to still survive to this day, but also to Mr. President. Thank you for now making DC safer.
Thank you very much.
For us, for our families, for my parents, on my behalf of my parents, and now my baby on the way. Thank you so much.
And there are other reporters and journalists, and good people, and you don't have to say it, but that have also been attacked violently, and not violently too, pretty badly. But and I bet you see a big difference in the streets right now. And this is only 12 days, but people are telling me they're going out to dinner now. They haven't. I told the story of my friend, but I have a lot of friends that are going out to dinner all the time now in D.C. and they weren't doing it 12 days ago. They would never even think. One of my friends went out 5 times. It was 4 times the last time I told. Now it's 5 times. He said, I love going out to dinner, and restaurants are starting to open again. A lot of them closed because, nobody wanted to go into a restaurant. Nobody wanted to get to a restaurant or even sit in the restaurant. But you see a big difference now, don't you?
I do pass by Union Station every day on my way home, and I do feel a lot safer seeing the trucks right outside, seeing the National Guard troops members right outside. Just made me feel like I'm hopeful about DC again, and one day hopefully we can raise our family here.
Thank you very much. That's nice. And those are tough troops, too. Those are not politically correct troops. We don't have politically correct anymore. We have tough guys, tough people, including some tough women. But we have tough people, and when you look at them, I tell you, they showed one scene where a bunch of Tren de Aragua guys, or whatever, maybe MS-13, maybe MSDNC, okay? Because to me, they're worse. I think they're worse. MSNBC maybe is worse than Tren de Aragua. Real scum, real dishonest people. But anyway, but they went into this gang, I think it was Tren de Aragua, Venezuela, and they weren't nice to this group of people. The gang was calling them sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here. You're no good. Get out of here. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. These are people that beat up people all day long. And they're calling these soldiers, that's what they are. They're real soldiers. There's no games. I said, you don't have to be politically correct. And you know the way they used to spit in the face of the soldiers, with the soldiers standing like this, and you'd have some guy or some woman sometimes screaming at them from 1 inch away. They're standing there, and they're told you cannot do anything, and they start spitting, actually spitting in their face. And I said, you spit, we hit. And they're totally authorized to do that, all of those things. But your story is great, and there are other stories here, but they don't have to tell them. But some people are ashamed to tell them. They don't want to tell them. But it was like a jungle, and it's not a jungle anymore. And it's going to get so good that this will be the safest capital there is. It'll be one of the safest places in our nation, anywhere. And right now, it's one of the most unsafe places, but not now. 12 days ago, it was the most unsafe place in our nation. And they have to stop issuing false crime numbers because, I mean, I heard the mayor, and I like the mayor, you know, fine. I don't care if I like her or not. If she did her job, I wish she were a horrible person who did her job. But she's probably nice, I guess. I don't care. I want her to do a job. But they issue false numbers. She said, crime is down, you know, before we got, now they can say crime is down. Crime is very much down. But what they did is they issue numbers. It's the best in 30 years. Not the best. It's the worst. It's the worst. It's much worse. And they gave phony numbers. And then they fired the man who didn't want to write the phony numbers. He got fired. And I guess that whole situation's under investigation because it's a very important thing, Pam. I mean, if they're going to give these phony numbers, it's a false feeling that you get crime, you have to do something about it. And you can't go around saying, oh, Washington, D.C. safe, if it's not. It's going to be very safe very soon. It's very safe right now. You're going to go out, have dinner. People are going out all over the place. They're walking. I have people that work in government, strong, tough cookies. They can take care of themselves. But it doesn't help to have big, strong muscles. And I work out. If a guy's over there with a gun shooting you in your face, you can be the strongest guy in the world. Guy has a gun, shoots you in the face. It doesn't matter how much you've worked out, how many weights you've lifted, how hard you work. And so we have the toughest guys and we have the best guys. And I'm willing to go to Chicago, which is a big trouble, but we have a governor that refuses to admit he has problems, huge problems. Baltimore, Wes Moore was telling me I want to walk with the president. Well, I said, I want to walk with you too someday, but first you got to clean up your crime because I'm not walking in Baltimore right now. Baltimore is a hellhole. And this guy, I don't even think he knows it. He's another candidate for president. Between him and Newsom, you got some real beauties, I'll tell you. But if we didn't go into Los Angeles, you wouldn't have the Olympics, in my opinion.
All right, so that was the president at his cabinet meeting today talking about the crime crackdown. Now, you heard him also mention the restaurant industry and how half of the restaurants in D.C. had closed. Now they're reopening thanks to this federal takeover. There's a celebrity chef here in D.C. who took some major issue with that. We're going to talk about that coming up a little later. First, though, I do want you to listen to more of what the president had to say. He took some questions from the press, talked more about the 30-day takeover, if he plans to extend it, and some of his other plans to help clean up the nation's capital. Take a listen.
victims like myself, a big concern is long-term sustainability. Can you share with the American public about your plan in ensuring that DC is safe in the long term?
Longer term, yeah.
Years
Well, it's a great question. Number one, we want to stay there for longer than 30 days, as you know. We have an absolute mandate, and I can extend it, but I'd rather not have to declare a national emergency because by that time, I mean, right now there's not an emergency. We've done, as you sort of said yourself, it feels like a different world. We've got under arrest and prosecution, and we've thrown out, taken some, and we're in the process of taking hundreds out of our country that shouldn't be here. And these are hardcore professional criminals. They were born to be criminals, in my opinion, but they're seriously bad people. Murderers, drug dealers, you know them all. You see them all as you walk beautifully to work, and every once in a while somebody puts a gun to your head, because that's what happened in your case. We're getting a lot of them out of the country. We're putting a lot of them in prison because we're afraid to bring them out of the country. They could come back. You know, as good as we're doing, they could come back. We don't want them back. And that's going to solve a lot of it. We also think there should be a presence here for long enough. We should also work with our police department because you have very good police here. Very good. We're working very well with them, by the way. And we have to work together for a while. We have some people that are very tough and very strong working with the police. They're going to be able to handle it. And you know what? If it gets a little bit bad, a little bit, just a little bit, I'll bring them back in and we'll straighten it out and we'll make it perfect. You're going to be so safe in the city. And you're going to have the city beautified. We're going to be giving out, we're working with Clark, as you know, construction. They're the biggest. They're working with me also. We're building a beautiful ballroom for the White House. They've been after it for 150 years, employs a lot of people. It's going to be as beautiful a ballroom as has ever been built. And Clark is the big builder in this city. They've done, I guess, a majority of the good work, the big work. And we're working with them on the beautification, the fixing up of the roads, the fixing up of the medians, between the roads, so cars don't wrap into each other. They wrap into. I have one piece sitting on the ground for weeks. This was a year ago when I had to come in, unfortunately, for fake court cases. And I looked at the condition. We have it fixed up a lot right now. You know, the tents are removed and a lot of things have taken place. But I'd come into this city and I'd say, boy, does it look bad. The filth on the roads, the medians were broken and always laying down and nobody would fix them and all of that. Well, we're going to have new medians. We're going to have a nice topping put on the road. We're not going to rip the roads apart and start a construction project that lasts for 2.5 years as they rebuild the road, which they don't have to do. And we're going to have this place so beautiful. That's going to be a part of it. Now, the biggest part is crime, but it's also a part, you know, when you see a dirty city, it's like I told, I don't know, it became the #1 thing viral. I said my father, he's a smart guy, he's a great guy, he's a loving, wonderful father, but he could be a little on the tough side. He told me that, son, when you walk into a restaurant and you see a dirty, filthy door going into the restaurant, don't go there because the kitchen's dirty also. When they see a dirty Capitol, the rest of the world, they lose a lot of respect for our country. This Capitol is going to be so beautiful. We're going to have new poles, new lights, new fences. It's stuff that, when you add it up, it's money, but it's peanuts compared to what we're talking about. And we're also going to have great safety.
All right, so that was the president talking about cleaning up the city amidst this 30-day federal takeover. So that was from his cabinet meeting. I mentioned it was a marathon meeting lasting almost 3 hours or more. And one of the other major developments that happened today that has nothing to do with crime here in DC or the federal takeover was the news breaking that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had gotten engaged, and that happened while the president was speaking at the White House. So in case you were wondering, a reporter did ask the president about it, and he did weigh in on that engagement. Take a listen.
Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish him a lot of luck.
Thank
No,
you.
I think it's. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
So the president wishing Taylor and Travis a lot of luck. We're going to have much more coming up on the other side of the break. We're going to talk about the impact this federal takeover of DC has had on tourism. Fox 5's David Kaplan took a look at that. We'll also talk more about the National Guard, and we'll talk about the celebrity chef calling out the president. Stay with us. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to our continuing coverage of President Trump's DC takeover. It's Tuesday night. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in on Fox Local and on our Fox 5 DC YouTube page. Barbara Squire and Toy Mafia leaving comments in our comment section on YouTube. If you're watching there, you can leave a comment as well. You can also ask questions. Anything you want to talk about, we'll try to answer them. In the meantime, a little earlier, we heard the president again talk about the DC restaurant industry. You may remember during that cabinet meeting where he talked about his friend who has been out to the restaurants 5 nights now. He also talked about the restaurants that had closed because of the crime situation in the city. They have now reopened thanks to his efforts to make the city safe again. Well, a celebrity chef here in the Washington, D.C. area, Jose Andres, took some issue with the president's claims. Take a look at what he posted on X. Mr. President, I understand why you are confused. All your time in D.C., you haven't eaten once outside the White House or your own hotel. I've lived here for 33 years, and it's a flat-out lie that half the restaurants have closed because of safety. It goes on to say, but restaurants will close because you have troops with guns and federal agents harassing people, making people afraid to go out. Cities and towns and rural areas of America need policies that allow small businesses to thrive and all people, including immigrants, to live and work with dignity. People shouldn't be afraid of their government. Government should have respect for its people, not terrorize them. So that was Chef Jose Andres on X. Now, at the same time, DC's tourism board released some new numbers about the state of tourism here in the nation's capital. This looks at the year 2025 overall, not just specifically these last 2 weeks and change since this federal takeover began. But they say the current political climate and the federal involvement in DC policing is not helping the situation. Fox 5's David Kaplan has more on that. Take a listen.
Tourism's important in D.C. Each year, they estimate that $2.3 billion are contributed by visitors to D.C. directly into D.C.'s tax base and support about 110,000 jobs. 2024 was a record-breaking year specifically for domestic travel, but there had already been signs in 2025 that international travel was slowing. Those visitors are coveted. They stay longer and tend to spend more money. Preliminary data anticipates a 5% drop-off in 2025. Not ideal, but better than the 8% drop-off officials were initially expecting. The CEO and president of Destination DC says perceptions of the U.S. political climate have hurt, and to the extent that tourists have heard about the National Guard on DC streets, he says that hasn't helped either. I spoke with a Swedish tourist who's aware of the state of U.S. politics and has friends who don't want to visit, but said she loves coming to America.
It is because of the political climate, of course. We, from Sweden, we're not so fond of the guy in charge, so to speak. So a lot of people goes to different places instead of going to the States.
At today's event, Destination DC said they also saw the impact of DOGE and federal government layoffs playing a role. Fewer government meetings, which puts a dent in visitation numbers. Here's hotel operator and Destination DC board chair Mead Atkinson, who says August is typically a slow month, but he's heard anecdotal data that hotel bookings in some areas of DC are down as much as 20% for August.
Meetings are more discouraged these days out of that segment, for sure. And whether you're a hotel that does a lot of government business, it's still a piece of the big pie, and it affects all of us.
Today, Destination DC unveiled its marketing strategy for 2026 to try and tell visitors that DC is not its politics, highlighting the many attractions and residents who live and work in the district. There is hope for a big 2026 for tourism. America 250, the tidal basin being improved for the cherry blossoms, new memorial, Lincoln Memorial Museum that should be done, and the Air and Space Museum fully being open. They are hopeful again that 2026 will be a bounce back.
That was Fox 5's David Kaplan. Let's talk about the National Guard now, because yesterday we told you that they were going to start some community cleanup projects, and today our crew saw a busload of those Guard members picking up trash in Lafayette Park right across from the White House, part of that effort to beautify the city and working with the National Park Service. Now, at the same time, D.C. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton introduced a bill today that would require National Guard and other military members deployed in D.C. to wear body cameras similar to D.C. police. A little earlier this evening, a group of civil and human rights lawyers from Black Lawyers for Justice announced they plan to take legal action in court to stop what they call the illegal actions of National Guard and MPD officers who are following President Trump's orders to occupy D.C. And Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin also hosted a virtual event tonight to talk about his effort to end the president's emergency federal takeover of D.C. Now, earlier today on Fox 5's DMV Zone, Marina Morocco talked to a reporter from WTOP Radio about how much this National Guard deployment could be costing taxpayers. They also talked about the House Oversight Committee investigation into the claims that D.C. police fudged the crime stats. Take a listen.
Let's break down the latest with Capitol Hill. Miller joining us now. Mitchell, good to see you. Latest, as we know, that James Comer has now summoned commanders before the Oversight Committee.
Well, it looks like the commanders are going to have to at least provide scripted interviews in connection with collect the crime data. Almost from the fact that there were some known around that perhaps were not accurate. Police district, that's the one in Columbia Heights and Adams Morgan. In an investigation, there is now a was on paid leave related to this. House Oversight Committee basically follows up on the German investigation, which all of course to President Trump's allegations there were some kind of fudging or messing around with these, the crime numbers lower. As you noted, has disputed that this would extrapolate the broader numbers, which show that violence is on a downward trend, as well as which is also going down.
Yeah. What do we know? Like, what are the protections for all people who are employed by DC? These are sworn statements under oath or whistleblower act. What do we know about any protections as to allowing them to be fact this were to be true?
Hopefully they're going to get a lot of legal from the city to make sure that they don't into anything here, because the case involving the one commander accused of wrongdoing, they don't want to do anything to endanger that case. So they will have some kind of legal protection. Usually these type of interviews will happen behind closed doors. It'll be later on to see what James Comer, the chair of the committee, will do in terms of releasing the information related to this. But this is an investigation that's going to be taking a while. They're also seeking documents, communications from the police department, of course, trying to find out whether or not these numbers have been brought down wrongly by the police department.
Yeah, which is incredible to see the U.S. federal Congress taking a municipal police department to task here and investigating that. And obviously, we know exactly why that's happening, given home rule, et cetera, as to DC's jurisdiction. But let's talk about the bigger picture here. We've got National Guard troops from pretty much a bunch of states, including DC's own guard. How much is this costing? Because it seems like at least one delegate is looking to get a dollar amount because they believe it's a waste of money.
Right. This was D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton sent a letter to the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and she wants to know what is the mission here, what's the legal basis for this deployment, and of course, what is the cost? And there has been no formal estimate in connection what this is costing per day, but we do have some indications of what it might cost based on the president's own deployment of or activation of the National Guard back after the 2020 race demonstration in connection with George Floyd and all that happened there. There was 5,000 National Guard members were deployed at that time, and it was estimated at that time that it was costing a little over $500 per day per Guard member. So if you extrapolate that to 2,000 troop members that are out on the DC streets now, it's probably costing close to $1 million or more than $1 million a day.
Yeah, and we've heard that this emergency obviously allotted for 30 days, but could potentially be extended through Congress, and that would be a real pretty penny if it does. Mitchell, regardless, I know you'll keep a watch on this, so much happening every single day. We'll be waiting for more news. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
All right, so that was from earlier today on Fox 5's DMV Zone. Now, coming up tonight on Fox 5 News at 10 and 11, Shamari Stone will have more on the city's latest homicide that we talked about at the top of the hour that broke the 12-day streak. He actually spoke to the victim's family. You'll hear from them coming up at 10 and 11 here on Fox Local and over on Fox 5. We'll be back here tomorrow night on Fox Local and streaming on YouTube at 9 o'clock. First, though, we're going to take you to Live Now in Progress. I'm producer Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
I believe there's 4 males and 1 female victim.
We were told earlier from LAPD Media Relations that the suspects, at least 3, took off in a white Honda Civic. Is that still the case?
That was preliminary information. So I tell you, there's probably 7 or 10 radio calls that came out initially, and so there's a lot of information that's being put out by different witnesses. So we're still vetting that information.
Any information on the suspects besides that vehicle, age? Are they all male? Were they wearing?
Yeah, we don't have that information at this moment.